I will show you how to create a save data component which can take different types of resources so that you can save your game. You can then reload those resources and then restore your game state. In a previous tutorial, I've shown you how to create crop fields and then plant your crops. However, when we close the scene and reload it, the crop fields are not persisted, so I will show you how to save that data to a game file. So let's begin by going to Scenes, Test Folder, and open the Test Scene Crop Fields ~dirt test scene. Then go to Scene, New Scene, and Other Node, and search for Node, and create that. And rename this node to Save Data Component. Then save this component in Scenes, Components, and then click Save. Then right click and attach a script. And we'll just call it Save Data Component Script and just save that in the Scenes and Components folder and click Create. And use class name Save Data Component. Then create an onReady variable called parent node, which is type node2d equals getParent as node2d. Then create an export variable called Save Data Resource, which is type resource. And in this function, use add to group with the string save data component. The add group to function is the same as using the groups collection here. However, if we use add to group here, we can then use these components in other games and we don't have to keep remembering to add them to the group. So I'm just going to add it to the group here. Then click the root folder for your game and add a new folder and call it resources. Then set the folder color and we'll choose purple. Then in the resources folder, right click and choose new resource and search for a resource and then create that and call this node data resource. Then select node data resource here and go to the inspector and click new GD script. Then right click, save as, and in the resources folder, call this node data resource and save that. And this will just set the script for our resource. Open the script and then use class name node data resource and say extends resource. Then for our first export variable, use global position, which is type vector2. Then export variable node path, which is type node path. Then export variable parent node path, which is also type node path. Then for our first function, use underscore save data, pass in node, which is type node2d, and then we'll return a void. Then say global position equals node.global position, node path equals node.getPath, then void parent node equals node.getParent. Then check if parent node is not equal to null. Then we can say parent node path equals the parent node.getPath. And for the next function, call this load data and pass in window and just write pass for this. So the reason why I've underscored these methods at the beginning is just to show that I'm going to override them later because we will derive from this class name and resource. Now head over to the scenes folder and in objects and plants, just open the corn scene and then in the components folder, just drag the save data component into here. And as you can see, we need to set the resource. Now this resource here is a base resource. So I'm going to derive from this resource and then set that resource on this save data component. So back in the resources folder, right click, create a new resource, and then create that resource and call this scene data resource and just save that. Then just double click it to load it in here in the inspector. Right click and choose new GD script, and then right click and save as. And then name the script scene data resource and click save. Then open the scene data resource script and use class name scene data resource, which extends node data resource. Then let's add an export variable called node name, which is type of string. Add another export variable, which is scene file path and is type of string. Then we'll create our first function, which is underscore save data and pass in node, which is type node2d and return a void. and then we'll call the save data method and pass in node, which is the base class save data method, which is this, and say node name equals node.name and scene file path equals node.scene file path. And for the next function, we can use load data and pass in window, returning void, and say var parent node, which is type node, var scene node, which is also type node. Then say if parent node path is not equal to null, then parent node equals window, get node or null, and then pass in that parent's path. Then say if node path is not equal to null, then variable scene file resource, which is of type resource, equals and then load, and pass in the scene file path. And scene node equals scene file resource dot instantiate as node2d. Then say if parent node not equal to null and scene node not equal to null, then the scene node dot global position equals global position. Then parent node dot add child, and then add the scene node, and just update these two nodes to be node2d. So we'll use this resource on the save data component where the scene node is of type 2D and is attached to a parent node, which is also of type 2D. Now back on the core and scene, choose save data component and then choose scene data tres file and just drag that resource into the save data resource to set that. Then back in scenes objects plants, open up the tomato scene, then in the components folder, drag the save data resource onto the tomato scene, then head back to the resources folder and then choose the save data resource and just drag that onto that property here. Now head back to the test scene crop fields till date, and we need to create a component in here that will go through and save all of our nodes which have a save data component, and it will save the level in its own file. So on the test scene crop fields till date, right click and add a child node, and we'll just choose node option and create that. Then rename the node and call it save level data component. Then go to the components folder and just drag that into our components folder and then save that as its own scene. Then right click and attach a script and also save that script in the same folder. Then use class name save level data component. And for our first variable, write level scene name, which is type of string, then var save game data path, which is type of string, equals, and then use this exact string here. So we're going to create a game data folder, then save file name, which is another type of string, and use this exact string here as well. And there's a format operator in there. Then override the ready function, and then use add to group with the name save level data component. Then call getParent.name. So when the ready method is called, we will get this name from the parent. And this will allow us to use the scene level name to be part of the name for the data file. Now, before we continue writing this script, we need to create a new resource which will act as a container and contain all of the small resources from each of the nodes which contain a save data component. So head back to the resources folder and create a new resource and just create that and call this save game data resource and save that. Then double click it to open it here and then say new GD script and save as, and call the script save game data resource as well and click save. Then open the save game data resource script and use class name save game data resource, which extends resource, and then use an export variable which is save data nodes, which is an array of node data resource, and this is the base class resource which we are deriving from. So that completes that script. Now head back to save level data component script and let's continue with this. Create a new function called save node data and return void, and use nodes getTree.get nodes in group, and then pass in the string save data component. Then declare another variable at the top called game data resource, which is type of save game data resource. And back in the save node data method, we'll say game data resource equals save game data resource again, and then just new that resource. Then we can say if nodes is not equal to null, then for node in nodes, and if node is a save data component, then create a variable save data resource, which is of type node data resource equals node dot save data. And we can just say node is of type save data component here. Then create another variable and call this save final resource equals save data resource, and then duplicate that. Then get the game data resource dot save data nodes and append it with the save final resource. Now let's create another function, and we'll call this save game and return a type of void and say if not directory access dot directory exists absolute, and pass in the save game data path. Then get the directory access class and use make directory absolute, and then pass in the save game data path again. So we are just checking if the directory exists, and if it doesn't, we'll make the game data directory. Then say var level save file name equals save file name and then level C name. So it will use this format, get the level C name, and then format and create us the correct file name. Then after this, call save node data and say variable result, which is of type int, equals, then use the resource saver class dot save, and then pass in the game data resource, the save game data path plus the level save file name. Then use a print debug statement, and we'll just output that save result. Then for the next method, call this function load game, which is also a return type of void. Let's declare a variable level save file name equals save file name and then the level C name. Then variable save game path equals save game data path plus level save file name. Then say if not file access dot file exists and pass in the save game path, then we can return. We can also just make these strings as well, and then back in save game make that type of string. Then back in load game, we'll say game data resource equals resource loader and dot load, and then pass in save game path. Then say if game data resource equals null, then return again. Then say var root node, which is a type of window, equals get tree dot root. Then say var resource in game data resource dot save data nodes. Then if resource is of type resource, and if resource is node data resource, then resource dot load data and pass in root node. This script is now complete, so let's head over to our scripts folder, and inside globals, create a new script and call this save game manager and create that. And then open the script, then go to project settings, and in globals, let's add our save game manager script. To go to scripts, globals, choose save game manager and open that, and then add the script and then close. And then back in project and project settings, go to input map and add a new action and call this save game. Let's add that action and click the plus button, and for the input, use the P key for persist and then click OK. Then click close. Then back in our save game manager script, let's create some functions, and the first one will be save game, which is a type of void, or save level data component, which is type of save level data component, equals get tree dot get first node in group, and then use the string save level data component. And say if save level data component is not equal to null, then save level data component dot save game. Then for the next function, call this load game and copy everything from save game But on line 15, we'll change this to be load game. Then, just above save game, let's override the unhandled input event and say if event.isActionPressed and then use the save game input event, then call our save game function. The next step is to create a special test scene save data node so that for test scenes, we save data slightly different than for the main game. And this will allow us to now test the save level data components and the individual save data components for the nodes as well. So back on test scene crop fields till date scene, right click and add another child node and just choose node and create that and rename this to be test scene save data manager component. And then back in the scenes and components folder, let's just drag that scene into that folder and then save that scene as a component. Then let's open the scene and right click and attach a script and save that as test scene save data manager component script and then create that. And in this script, use class name test scene save data manager component. Then for the first function, override the ready method and just use pass for now. And for the second method, use function load test scene. Then use the save game manager and call the function load game. Then back in the ready method, use call deferred and pass in the string load test scene. So we are using call deferred because we just need to make sure the save level data component and the save data components have been loaded in the scene tree first. Now head back to the test scene and just move these to the top just to organize that a little bit better. Then back in the scenes and components folder, just open the save data component script and let's add another function here. So say function underscore save data and we'll return a type of resource. Then say if parent node equals null, then return null. Then if save data resource equals null, then push error and output the save data resource and the parent node.name, which is causing the error. And this will just check if we set up a save data component correctly with the parent node and the resource, so we can catch that here. Then use save data resource dot save data and pass in parent node. Then return save data resource. So that completes the script. So go back to the test scene and in the 2D view, let's just go to scenes, objects and plants and just drop the corn scene onto our test scene. So before we test the scene, just head back over to the save level data component and for save game data path, I'm using the user path. So just check the Godot documentation for file paths and just check which directory your user path will be. I'll leave this link in the description below. So we can now go and test the scene. Run the current scene. I'll just move this window up so we can view the output window. Then press the P key on the keyboard. And in the output window, we have a save result of 0. So this has successfully saved the game data. Then head over to your game data location. So in the app data folder here, under roaming and Godot, in the app user data folder, I have a game folder for my game. And then this contains my game files. I've created my own game data folder, so I'll go into there. I've got the save game data file, and that's the name of the test scene which I'm saving. So I'll open that, and I can see in that file, I've got my corn scene, and it's been added to the save data nodes array. So now that we're saving the corn scene and the plant scene, let's actually now save the till-date tilemap to the file as well, so that when we load this scene, we get something similar to this. So back on test scene crop fields, just remove that corn scene because we create our scenes dynamically with the till-date. Head to the resources folder and create a new resource. Just select that and create that and call it tilemap layer data resource and just click save. Then back in the resources folder, right click, create a new script and create a GD script which is tilemap underscore layer data resource and create that. Then double click the Tilemap layer data resource file, and in the TRES file, when it loads, just drag and drop the Tilemap layer data resource script onto the script property. Then double click the script and let's use class name Tilemap layer data resource and then extend node data resource. And for the first export variable, use Tilemap layer useCells, which is an array of vector2i. Then the next export variable is the terrain set, and we'll set that to a default value of 0. Then another export variable, which is the terrain, and we'll use a default value of 3. Then for the first function, let's use underscore save data and pass in node and return void. Then say super underscore save data and pass in the node. So this will call the save data method of node data resource. Then for the next variable, say tilemap layer, which is of type tilemap layer, and then we'll cast the node as a tilemap layer. For the next variable, we'll say cells, which is an array type of vector2i, and we'll get the tilemap layer and the used cells. Then we'll set tilemap layer useCells equals cells. And for the next function, we will use underscore load data and pass in window and return void. Then for scene node equals window dot get node or null and then pass in node path. Then say if scene node is not equal to null, then for tilemap layer equals scene node as tilemap layer. Then tilemap layer dot set cells terrain connect and then pass in tilemap layer useCells terrain set our terrain and the last parameter is true. Now that completes the script. So go back into test scene crop fields and under game tilemap and tilled soil, let's then grab our save data component and get that scene and drop it onto tilled soil. Then go back to the resources folder and get the tilemap layer data resource TRES file and drop that onto the save data resource property. So let's go to the test scene and back in the app data folder under the game and the game data, just remove the old file as we've made some changes and then let's run the test scene. Now let's just create a crop field and let's then plant the corn and plant some tomatoes. Then I'll press the P key. Then back in the game data folder, let's open that file. And as you can see, it's creating these resources here. So we've got the node data resource, the tilemap layer data resource, the scene data resource, and the save game data resource. And it's got all of the properties from each of the resources. The scene data resource and the tilemap layer data resource derive from node data resource. And that's why we've still got global position node path and parent node path in all of the resources. So we are reusing certain properties, which makes it more efficient when creating the resources to save data. If we scroll down, all of the save data component nodes and the resources are saved in an array, which we call back later, and that's the save data nodes. Now I'll just close the test scene and let's run it again. And as you can see, it's persisted that crop field. I will now set up the test scene again and create a new crop field and then add some breakpoints in the code and explain how the save level data component and save data components work. I am now ready to press the P key on the keyboard to save the data file, and I will step through the breakpoints to explain the code in a little more detail. When the save game action is pressed, we'll go into save game and then we check if our scene has a save level data component. Then we grab the save level data component and then we just go into there and save the game from there. Then using directory access, we check if the directory exists first, and the game path will be the user path, which is defined in Godot. Then we create the level save file name, which is save underscore the level name underscore game and data. Then we go and save the node data itself. So from the scene tree, we get all of the nodes which have the group save data component, and then we bring those nodes into a collection and then create a new instance of the save game data resource, which is an array of resources. We then go into the save data component method and then get the resource from the save data component. And then inside the resource, which is attached to the save data component, we then call save data on the resource. So in this instance, we've got this save data component here, which is the Tilemap layer data resource. And what we can do is then set those variables and get the cells from the Tilemap layer and then set them on the resource. Once they've been set on the resource, we can return from the resource and then add it to the game data resource save data nodes collection. Then as we go through the next save data component, we can go into the save data there and then go into the resource of that component. And this one is the scene data resource. So we can actually check what the name of that is. And this is one of the corn scenes. So we get the scene file path, and if we just check the resource, which is here, so if we just drag this up, you can then click this object to inspect it further, and we can see the information which is now inside of this parameter here. And just open this up and we can see that the node name is corn. It's automatically set the scene file path, and in the node data resource, which is the base class, the global position node path and parent node path has been set. So if we look at this, you can see that the parent node path is crop fields. Let's just collapse this a little bit more and we'll just return from that. So I can just keep cycling through those nodes and returning, and it's going to save all of the data nodes in the level scene. And as you can see, it's just going through the collection. And then when it's come out of there, we then save the game data resource, which is the array of all the resources which have now got properties set. And then we check the result and it's 0, so it successfully saves the game file. Now I will step through how the load mechanism works. So I'll close the scene and just run the test scene again. This time round, we are going through the load test scene method of the test scene save data manager. Now this is a special component just for test scenes to allow loading game data that was saved only for test scenes. In a future tutorial, I will show you how to load using the save game manager from a main menu. So just step into that method, and then we do the same thing here. We just get the save level data component and then we load the game. So we build up that level save file name and then we see if that file exists. If the file exists, we have some information in there to help us load those resources again. So we load the game data resource, which is the array collection of all the resources. Then we get the tree's root node and start to go through the resources inside of the game data resource collection. Then in the resource, we can then call the load data function. So if we just step through that load data function, we can see that the first resource it's found is the Tilemap layer. And the load data will then find the Tilemap layer that's associated with it and then start to rebuild and attach the properties for that specific node. So for Tilemap layer, we need the Tilemap layer use cells and the terrain set and the terrain. So what it does is that it grabs the Tilemap layer and then sets the terrains again. Then we go back through the collection again. So let's see what the next resource is. So if we just step into load data, the next resource is the scene data resource. So we just check the properties. So yeah, we do have a parent node path. So let's set that. And then we do have a node path. So what we can then do is load the scene from that path. So we grab the corn scene and then we create the corn scene by using instantiate. And then what we need to do is to then attach the scene to the parent. So the parent node path is crop fields, and then we get the position that we saved and then reset the position of the new scene we've just created. And then we can just reattach it to the parent node, which is crop fields. Then we can go through again So the scene data resource is responsible for just creating those scenes on load. And then we can just go through that method. So in this instance, it's a crop fields node and it will just create those. So let's just keep stepping through and then F12 to continue. I'll close this window. And that is how we are saving and loading data using the save data component and resources. Now that brings us to the end of this tutorial on how to create save data components with custom resources to allow you to dynamically save data for your game. As you can see, those reusable components can be attached to different scene types, and if you derive from the resources, you can save different variables. If you like what you've seen in this tutorial, please remember to hit like and subscribe to receive future updates of my other tutorials. Thank you for watching.